Hello and welcome to the Game Changer series for Global Entrepreneurship Week 2016 in association with Business Crowd. I'm delighted today to be interviewing Wendy Kier, who is going to speak with us about how you can use online speaking to help you develop your business. Wendy is the founder of the UK's first online speaking club, the Speaking Pro for aspiring speakers. And Wendy set this up to help people like yourselves who are running businesses to leverage the power of the internet to reach and connect with a local and a global audience. And hopefully we've got many of you from around the globe listening now. So welcome, Wendy.
Thank you. It's an absolute honour.
Thank you. And Wendy, tell us a little bit about your business and what you hope to create for people through what you do with Speaking Pro.
Okay. Good question. Where shall I start? So Speaking Pro was born from my core business, which is about hosting virtual summits. And I do that in a number of different ways. I teach people how to bring them together, so organisations and individuals how to bring a virtual summit together, and also through the one-to-one mentoring of summits as well. One of my core values is around, I believe that everybody has the right and the access to good quality information. So Speaking Pro was sort of born out a combination of really wanting to get a bigger message out to the world, and I thought what better way to do that than to bring speakers together, because they all have incredible stories, and I wanted people to access that around the globe in different communities, because it's accessible online. So that's sort of how it was created. So it was a spin-off from the virtual summits that I'd been teaching my clients to do. Speaking Pro was born out of the core business, I guess.
And a need that, one of the things I think we're so privileged with at the moment is we're in a time where we can use technology as we're doing now to reach many, many people. And this was technology that was out of reach for so many people and not accessible unless you had a large corporate account going back 5, 10 years ago. We now have these capabilities to connect globally, and I think that presents a huge opportunity for people who are just beginning a business to be able to access wider markets or to share knowledge and be able to showcase the best of what they do.
Yeah, technology is moving so quickly. The systems, even 5, 10 years ago would have been so expensive we wouldn't have been able to use them. But to put a virtual summit on, for people that don't know, aren't familiar with virtual summits, in the States, people, if you say virtual summit to someone, they understand what it is. In the UK, we're slightly behind the times, I'm afraid. But a virtual summit is where, say you went to a conference and you had a group of speakers that were all talking around a particular theme. A virtual summit is very similar, apart from it is in a virtual space and people can get access to that information and education, the insight globally, as long as they've got internet connection. Now historically that would have been very, very expensive to do, but because technology is advancing so quickly and a lot more people can get access to it, it's driven the prices down, so it's much more accessible.
And not only that, it can be supported by other materials to enrich the learning experience for people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Mm, mm. So tell us what really prompted you to want to set up and create your own business. Tell us a little bit about your background, Wendy, and what prompted that shift.
Well, I've got a slightly different story to most, I think, and that is I worked for a long time with the voluntary and the social sector, and I have a disability, dyslexia, and I was just sick to death of the criticisms, the discrimination, all of that stuff that you're presented with when you're trying to manage a disability. I just got one day I just thought, I'm not doing it anymore. I don't want to be put down or live by somebody else's expectations of how I should be delivering stuff. So I decided to go it alone and start a business. So slightly different probably to most people, but I was just sick to death of being criticised all the time. So I thought, yeah, I'm going to go and do something different.
Really interesting, because statistics actually show from research that's been done that actually within the entrepreneurial world, we have a higher proportion of people with dyslexia, and I think that that's really because there are gifts of creativity with dyslexia, with other things that mean that somebody is not maybe as neurotypical but has different insights, and a different way of looking at the world can often be something that we need in order to find different solutions to problems that people have. That is actually how some innovations are created and new businesses are created, because people are attracted, and I think people who think differently are generally more attracted to going it alone and setting up a business. I mean, not entirely alone, of course, we've got to have our support networks, our employees, but that ability, and I don't know, do you think that that is something perhaps that is born out of that thing of having to manage a condition and make the best of what you're given?
Yeah, I think, I can only speak for myself, but the thing is, when you have a disability, you're always trying to find different ways around things. And because of that inquisitive nature and always finding a way around things, those constraints of working within an organisation start to wear very thin, I think, because you're constantly moving forward all the time to look for ways around things. So yeah, I'm not sure. I can only speak from my own experiences, but yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I just think so. It's a really interesting thing that, as I say, the statistics do show that it is a higher incidence in the
Yeah,
entrepreneurial world, which I find fascinating, and also actually quite empowering for people who might be thinking, what do I do next? I don't feel like I fit within the corporate mold, not even necessarily because of the disability, but for many other
yeah,
reasons. Sometimes creating a business actually is born out of the solution to finding something to do that's going to be rewarding, because you may not
yeah,
fit the traditional mold.
yeah, absolutely.
So in setting up your business, obviously you've been going for a while now. What have you found the challenges that you've needed to overcome, and what would your tips be to people who are maybe starting out at the moment?
I think a big one for me was the sense of when I first started of failing at things, that I always felt that nothing was working and that I couldn't get my head around that it hadn't worked, but actually it's good that it hasn't worked because you learn new ways. I guess it comes back to my nature again. You change it, you adapt it, you try it again. I think what I'm trying to say is, don't write it off as a complete failure. Try it a different way, and see if that works. If that doesn't work, try it another way. But you really want to make lots of mistakes but recover really quickly.
Mm,
So rather than beating yourself up, you want to celebrate and rejoice in it, rather than actually thinking, oh God, not again. It is what it is, and it'll help you create a much stronger foundation for moving forward.
Mm, It's looking at that process of iteration. I can remember
Yeah,
training that I was part of many, many years ago, and they used the example of teaching people to juggle. And every time you were throwing and catching and piecing it together, every time you dropped it, to see that as what they called a learning rather than a failure.
yeah, yeah.
So just changing that way that we think about things. If something is not perfect the first time round, then actually that's okay, because you learn from that. You learn what you can shift, whether it's for your market, whether it's for yourself in your own pursuit of excellence. And as you say, recover quickly. So what do you do to recover if you have an experience like that? What's the thing that absolutely helps you snap yourself out of it and move forward?
I recognise that it's just part of the process. I think for me, psychologically, that is the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just pick out what's worked and forget about the rest, then it's worked.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So psychologically, the biggest thing, that's the biggest thing for me. But then to pick out what has worked and then just focus in on the things that have worked and just let the rest go.
Yeah, that's really, really sage advice. And as you've created your business, I mean, obviously you've done it in a very non-traditional way. What have you found has really helped you to move it forward quickly?
Collaboration, working with other people, reaching out to people who have established networks of people that I can offer value to. So Speaking Pro was a virtual summit, and we worked together on Speaking Pro. And that was one big, massive collaborative project of 30 people coming together to share a message.
Mm, mm. And they still continue to collaborate even now.
Yeah.
It's a real community that's been created there. So collaboration and community, I think, again, are two things which are things that when somebody is starting a business, you need to look for and you need to find very, very quickly, because it's also a ready place to be testing ideas as well, to go and reach out for inspiration, or sometimes actually just somebody to put you back on the right track.
Absolutely.
Mm.
You can't do this alone. That is the reality. The thing is, if you move your business slow and you don't collaborate or get any support or help from anybody, you'll actually kill the business, because you'll be moving so slowly that there'll be no growth. You just stay completely stuck. So you really have to. I wish I'd done it a lot earlier. You really have to find, who you can be of support to, and vice versa. So you've got that strong connection. The thing to bear in mind is you really do have to work at the relationships. Don't just expect that if you reach out to somebody that the magic's going to happen. That relationship's going to take some time to be romanced. There's going to need to be some trust that's built up. Then the relationship can blossom.
Mm.
It doesn't happen. It's not, you don't take them out for a pint and then the deal's done sort of thing. Then you've shaken on it. The relationships take a lot longer than that.
Absolutely. It takes time, doesn't it, to build that
Yeah,
trust, and also I think to make sure that you've got people around you that have that alignment with values.
yeah, really important.
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
then they buy into it. If you don't sort of align yourself and people have a really good understanding of you and where you're coming from, they don't buy into it as much.
Mm. Mm. And I guess it's one of those things that once you begin building that network, if it's a network that's in alignment as well, the
Yeah,
onward referrals, the onward connections naturally happen
yeah,
for
yeah. It's not
people.
forced.
Yeah, it's very, very natural for people who, again, have a similar value set, and because you've built that trust, you know that those recommendations that are coming forward are generally,
Yeah,
positive. Yeah, it's interesting.
yeah.
And tell us, I mean, you're working on, I don't know if you're able to share with us, but I know that you personally, you're working on a really exciting project at the moment.
Yeah, there's a coming out called the coaching movie Leap, and that's going to be coming out to the tail end of 2017. And I'm lucky that I'm going to be managing their virtual summit for them, so that's very exciting because their mission is to reach 1 million people, and to do that they have to reach and collaborate with the wider community of coaches and consultants and people who are in the change industry and focused around education. So that's my role to bring the virtual summit together.
hmm hmm And I think that's really interesting because that is very much about the power of positive psychology,
Yeah,
to help reach people and to ultimately to change lives.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's
And that's a core value of mine. And if I hadn't shared that, um, I don't think I would have got the job.
but it's a perfect example in action, isn't it,
Yeah,
of that values
yeah,
alignment coming and
yeah,
connecting you with the right people to present that opportunity, which I know
yeah,
you're going to make a fantastic success of.
yeah, yeah. I'm quite excited. It's going to be a good project.
It sounds very, very exciting. So
Thank you.
I think it's going to be incredible and a real testament to the work that you've done with Speaking Pro and building on that and taking it to a wider audience in service of, coaching and getting those messages out about how that can support people in their personal and in their business growth.
Thank you.
So is there anything else that you would say would be your one key piece of advice for anybody who at the moment is either in a business or thinking of setting one up, as to how they can make a start with increasing their visibility, Wendy?
That's a really interesting one. It's funny, I was just thinking as you were speaking, right, the one thing I'm going to leave with is about you've got to get to grip with sales. That's not exactly in line with what you were asking me though, was it?
You've got to get to grip with sales. I guess it is, because I think a lot of people are very, very visible, but one thing that's very interesting is how
That's very true.
comfortable they
Yeah,
are with that visibility. And I think that that also directly translates to how comfortable they are with asking for the sale.
yeah. That's a very good point actually. Yeah, because you can be visible, but if you're not telling people what it is you're doing, or
Mm.
you don't have a consistent call to action,
Mhm.
then you're not going to you won't generate any business, especially through social. People need to know what it is you have to offer. And I didn't master sales, the sales process early enough on in the business. And I believe if I'd mastered it a lot earlier, I'd be a lot further than I am now. So mastering sales, getting comfortable with sales, having even a checklist of questions and a process that you go through that positions yourself, and you spend time in a sales call. That's what I would really like to leave people with, is master your own sales process and practice, 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 practice on lots of people until you get over any fears that you've got. And then I think businesses can really, well, certainly for me anyway, it's definitely changed my business and the way I do things. You can start to thrive rather than survive.
So three key things there that I heard, Wendy. So clearly identifying the proposition,
Yeah,
positioning that proposition with your
yeah,
prospects, and
absolutely.
being really, really clear to then practice and then make the ask. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, yeah. And that is something that is so important, particularly when you're communicating with people in the online world, to be able to do that through the different mediums, to have that consistency.
Yeah.
So That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to have a conversation today to share with the entrepreneurs that are listening in for Global Entrepreneurship Week. Wishing you and the team with the coaching movie every success next year, and
Thank you very
looking forward to seeing the Speaking Pro
much.
community go from strength to strength. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been an absolute honour.